What is up, Rad Potential YouTube? Welcome to today's video. Not quite an unscheduled appearance here at the Rad Ranch, but the turbo truck is back for a little bit of some help. We're going to be taking this perfectly good truck apart simply to improve the aesthetic of what you see under the engine bay. So, this truck is owned by my good friend Charles. He's had this thing for a very long time. When I first met Charles, the cab of this truck was sitting on the back of the cab, standing like a rocket ship in the corner of his garage, and then the frame of the truck with like a little engine and stuff were also in his garage, and there was stuff stacked on top of everything. Whenever I was living down in Nashville, I lived with Charles's daughter and son-in-law, and we got this truck put back together, unpainted, running, and then a couple years ago over Christmas, I took the truck home and Calvin and I painted it without him knowing, and then put the whole truck together and surprised him with it for Christmas. So this is a super cool truck. Means a lot to us, the Tennessee Rotary community. A whole bunch of us have worked on it and helped Charles with it. And Charles is super grateful. He always helps out everyone else. So it's always great to give back to the people who help you. Needless to say, I have had this truck apart and back together, engine out, engine back in, changing stuff a bajillion times. It actually currently has one of my engines in it. It is a Turbo 2 Series 4 Turbo 2 block that I had laying around. Charles's engine was hurt a little while. It was getting hard to start. So we just swapped the engine out. I think last year before Deals Gap, maybe like a couple weeks before or something like that when I was working on the Rad X7. It's on a Haltech E6K, I think, which is super old school DOS-based tuning. You actually have to like be a computer programmer to fire up your computer to make this work. As much as I say that, I'm just like Windows and virtual user interface stuff versus like command prompts. Anyways, we're going to pull this engine out, make a huge bloodbath on my floor, which is normal. Calvin's coming out, and we're going to take the front clip of this off. Bottom of the hood's getting resprayed black. You know, fenders, the whole front end will all come off of it so that we can paint the whole engine bay black. And then we'll be putting this whole thing back together and getting it back to Charles, you know, pretty quickly. It's got a little baby turbo on it. Makes decent jam at like 9 PSI. It's plenty of fun. For how heavy, or I guess how light the truck is, the color is Mazda winning blue. So if you ever see a blue RX-8, this is the same blue that the blue RX-8s are. It just looks a little different and darker on the truck with more black accents. As far as the interior stuff, nice black door cards, fresh black carpet. Charles had this seat redone with all this blue piping on it. It looks sweet. If you can name the car that this steering wheel comes from, drop it in the comments below. The only hint I'll give you is that I own a car that this steering wheel came from the factory in, and that's the only hint I'm going to give you. But this is an original Mazda steering wheel, just not for the truck. As far as everything else in here, this deal is pretty trick. Nice little custom center console with the radio, all the gauges in here. You see this fuel gauge and that fuel gauge. They both actually work, and the reason for that is this truck has a factory tank under the bed, and then we've got this tank up here that feeds the fuel injection system. There's also a line from the tank below to pump into this tank. So it's a little overkill, but this truck's got almost 40 gallons of fuel in it. I think maybe 35 gallons of fuel. The stock truck tanks are 20 gallons. So basically, you can still fill up from the factory filler. You know, we have intentions of putting a bed cover on this at some point. But the bed, we had it all nicely bed lined. It looks super nice. Charles takes real good care of this thing. But it does get used as a truck. So Calvin has a little bit of some work cut out for him. We got a little dent right here we're going to fix, and a little dent right here. Some PDR work, you know. This thing gets driven, guys. As much as it is a show truck and everyone would love to have this thing in their garage, it's pristine, perfect, and all of that, you know, it's a truck, so it gets used. Charles takes the trash to the dump in it. He goes to the store in this thing. Like, that's the purpose of owning cars, guys, is using them, having fun, driving them. We can always build another engine. You know, with this thing, if a piece of chrome or blacked out trim flies off, then yeah, we might struggle to find a headlight bezel for a rotary truck. But why leave it parked in your garage? Get out and drive your cars. So I'm going to pop this engine out. I bet I can have it all out in probably an hour by myself. So I'll note the time. Currently, y'all didn't see it. Currently 5:15. I'm gonna get this thing all ripped apart. 6:23. So what was that? An hour and some change, maybe? The engine has cleared the truck. Honestly, could have went a little bit faster, but the truck's still really nice, so we don't want to damage it, you know, taking this apart at all. The only thing that really tripped me up is, let me show you this. So with that turbo manifold, this bolt right here is very, 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 very hard to get to. So I had to like get that off with a shorty. And then I was going to take the turbo manifold off, you know, prior to lifting the engine out. Well, the turbo manifold doesn't come off unless you lift the engine up. So then I had to, you know, circle back, do a few things, make a big mess draining coolant. But truck radiator and oil cooler, it all comes out as one unit. Fired up for that. Little baby turbo chilling right here. Fired up for that. Downpipe intake, heat blanket. Literally nothing you can't do in an hour with, you know, a 14, a flat blade screwdriver, a 13, an adjustable wrench, your 17mm wrench, a 19 to drain the oil, and she's ready to rip. So engine bay, truck is out. So the goal is, I'm going to strip the rest of this, clean up my mess. I'll show you guys what this looks like. Calvin's going to be here in a second. We're going to take this whole front clip off this truck and make this thing look just bare as bare can be. I'm going to most likely leave the transmission in here. It sits far enough back. We're probably only going to paint blue to that pinch weld right there above the transmission, which I'll show you all here in a second. So not everything has to come out of here, but basically everything. I think I'm going to leave the steering box in there, and we're going to work around the steering box. Truck doesn't have power steering, so that's a win, but the whole core support, all the fenders, intercooler pipes have to come out. I really don't think we need to take the bumper off. I think we can leave the bumper on, which is a huge win, because the way that this bumper fits, the lower valence, how it fits around the intercooler, is a royal pain in the butt to get on. So this has a fiberglass, like aftermarket, super trick, lower valence versus a steel one that would have came on this truck. So pretty fired up for that. But I think the bumper can probably stay on, unless it doesn't look like it's going to impede getting the fenders off. So, you know, bumper, this, all that comes off. But I'm going to clean up my mess, and we're going to take this front clip apart. Right, you're free and clear. It's all you. Ready? So this is a rotary truck, all tore apart. Bodymaster Calvin. We got the hood off. So we're going to paint around this harness here. So all the ignition coils, all the wiring, everything is under the dash. And then this harness comes out in the middle. So the engine bay is basically completely shaved. You don't see any of the wiring. And then we'll pop these fenders off. These, and these around the bottom. And then we can paint all the way past some of these pinch welds. So that way when we put the fenders on, you won't be able to see any of the black anymore. The ultimate question is, what do you think? You think we ought to leave this all black in here? Probably ought to. I don't think we should paint behind the grill blue.
It's so much easier to paint it all blue, but I think we leave it black. Otherwise, the black grill is gonna have blue behind it.
Yeah. So we probably ought to back tape this edge.
Would it be easier for me to just paint it black after I paint it blue?
It could be, yeah. I mean, because you don't really. I mean, we could scuff over the blue and paint it with just like.
That's me. I could use the trim black.
Yeah, we just use trim black instead of actual spray.
Yeah.
But we probably ought to. These pieces come off, so but the top of it you'll see. So
yeah.
That probably ought to be blue.
Paint the whole thing blue.
Yeah.
We can pull the headlight buckets out and not have to worry about those.
Pull the horns out. Yep.
Paint the whole thing blue, and then just we can back tape everything and just paint what you see black.
Yeah, I really want to leave the bumper on, because getting the bumper off is pain.
An ordeal.
It's a pain in the freaking butt. So we're leaving the bumper on, but we'll, you know, we can tape it off, I think, and be just fine. What a beautiful day at the Rad Ranch for making a ginormous mess outside. Engine bay, 90% stripped. it's a dusty mess. The frame actually wipes down pretty nice. There was a little bit of an oil leak though from the turbo feed line that I've been spraying some oil on this driver's side, so we'll get that cleaned up. But effectively, I spent a few hours out here today cleaning this thing up. I did have a cover, like a bag, over the fuel lines and that brake line so we didn't get a bunch of dust and stuff in there. Same with the intercooler pipes. I just pulled it off, or well, they got leaf blowered off whenever I leaf blowered the inside of the whole, you know, everything off. I had a big towel over the truck too, so nothing too crazy there. But yeah, man, this blue pops in the sun, doesn't it? The black stripe just makes the truck, which is super stoked on how this is going to turn out. So the engine bay, the next time you see this thing, this engine bay is going to be changing colors from bare metal mess of cow patch right here to winning blue RX-8, just like the rest of the truck. And I'm super stoked. We've opted to back tape around the radiator outlet, so the grill and everything behind the headlights is going to stay black, so you won't see the blue behind it. If you ever worked on like an old S chassis car, even I think some FCs, maybe not the FCs, for sure like an old S chassis car. I know the FDs don't have it because there's one over there that's taken apart. But Nissan, whenever they would paint their cars, they would just paint the whole front end, you know, fenders off and stuff, and then put the fenders on. And then they would literally, it kind of varies car to car, but they would spray black in on top of it behind where the grill shows through, so that way when you're looking through the grill, it's black in there. It just looks a little cleaner. So they literally wouldn't mask it or anything, so you'd see just like a haze of black paint around them. At least I've seen that on a decent amount of S chassis cars. But that's the goal. So the truck should stay mostly looking like it is from the front. Just the bottom of the hood is now going to be blue. The engine bay is now going to be blue. You know, frame will still be black. The engine's still going to be, that one's actually painted black and silver. Normally, these days, I don't like to paint these engines. I usually just leave them raw. They look better that way. Easier to work on and take apart. You don't have to repaint it and they get chipped. But the truck's going to transform, and I'm excited. It's a real quick transformation. I'm sure, oh yeah, my face is really dirty. It's going to be a real quick transformation, but it's where it worked out for Calvin, Body Shop Master, getting this thing in the booth to get it sprayed, and whatever we got to do to make sure we hit the marks, you know, especially for our subcontractors out there, making sure everything's ready and we're not the rate limiting step. That's what we're going to do. So with that, that's going to be the end of this video. Tearing apart a perfectly good running and driving truck, because why? We wanted the engine bay blue because black was just too boring. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Parts coming in for the Radix 7. We're going to get this thing put together, get it running. I've been working on stuff on the 4-rotor too, so get excited because Radix 7 engine build video, Radix 7 get running, 4-rotor. Rotary truck turned blue. We got lots going on. Excited to share it all with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it rad. We'll see you in the next one. So, because I like to think about the future, y'all just get to ignore the wind noise for now. So I've got this blue RX-8 over here, and one of my Patreon members is from overseas, not in the United States, and he rallies an RX-8. So that got me thinking, after I talked to him a little bit on Patreon, how much travel you can get out of these with just extending the strut tower in the rear. And you can actually get like decent 6-ish inches of travel out of the front, and he said like 7 or 8 in the back. And if I can get some good travel out of an RX-8, or figure out, like, I'm a big math guy, right? So like the hybrid Renesis, all that stuff, it's pretty much planned out to a T. I know every single thing I need to do for it before we even start the project. So same thing with the Rally RX-8. If I can figure out a Rally RX-8, guys, we'll be doing a Rally RX-8. It's going to be sick.